Okay. We are. Hello. Sorry for that little bit of disturbance. And here we have Dhruva, Chinmay, and Joey working really, really hard to bring us all back on that same platform. So here there is a little bit of recap. Actually, I don't remember where we went off. So a bit of a repetition, but still a recap for you. Coming back to the phases of the menstrual cycle. This is day 1 of the cycle, and this is day 28, the last day of a typical menstrual cycle. Now, learned earlier, day 1 to 7, usually 1 to 5, but max day 1 to 7. सो जो है बेटा
Ishan, hello. Joey here. We are live again. Okay. Yeah. क्या करूं? मैं करूं आईफोन जाते हैं
નથી mute
Yes, yes.
So, uh, back again, just a small recap. We were discussing the different phases of the endometrial cycle. Here, I have made a schematic diagram of the ovarian cycle which we have just witnessed, and these are the different phases of the ovarian cycle. So the primordial follicle growing into the primary follicle, becoming the antral follicle or a full grown Graafian follicle. Then on day 14, on a standard 28-day cycle, we have the ovulation with the expulsion of the oocyte along with the adjoining granulosa cells, and the remaining part of the Graafian follicle now being called the luteum. As we remember, the granulosa cells secreted estrogen in large amounts and progesterone in small amounts under the effect of pituitary gonadotropins. We are going to discuss the hormones and their controls later on. This forms a fully grown, fully mature Graafian follicle is now ready to ovulate. Under the effect of the LH surge, the follicle ruptures, or there is a breach in the follicle at one point, and due to the internal pressure, the primary oocyte with its adjoining cells are liberated, which are taken up by the uh, fallopian tube, and onwards the oocyte and its polar bodies now are taken up in the fallopian tube awaiting fertilization. In the event of presence of sperms, fertilization will take place and there will be formation of the zygote and the blastocyst and so on. In case there is no fertilization, this empty uh, Graafian follicle now becomes a corpus luteum. The primary change being now the main hormone of the Graafian follicle was estrogen, sorry, and the main hormone, the predominant hormone of the corpus luteum is now progesterone. Under the effect of these hormones, the endometrium undergoes cyclical changes, that is what we see here. Day 1 to 7 being the shedding as well as the continuous regeneration. By day 7, almost all of the endometrium of the previous cycle has been shed and regeneration has started at all the parts of the cavity. The regeneration occurs from the basal lamina and the mouth of the endometrial glands. Now, under the effect of estrogen and other supporting growth factors, there is persistent increase. There is a very high mitotic activity. There is multiplication of the cuboidal cells of the endometrium, and it becomes a multilayered endometrium, gradually attaining the maximum thickness of about 4 to 5 millimeters at the peak, that is on day 12 or 13. Along with it, there is a development of the endometrial glands, which are very, very important in secretions, which are important for the nourishment of the embryo if implantation should occur. Also, it secretes secretions to keep it moist, as well as leukocytes and lymphocytes to prevent infection. Along with it, there is development of the microvasculature of the endometrium, which is very, very important to conduct the estrogen and progesterone to the endometrium proper. These are the spiral arteries of the endometrium. On day 14, when there is ovulation under the LH surge in the Graafian follicle, day 13 to 14 is also sometimes called as the interval period. This is also the phase of transition from the proliferative phase of the endometrium to the secretory phase. Now, under the effect of the corpus luteum and its high level of progesterone, the endometrium undergoes a secretory transformation, thus being called as a secretory phase. There is increased compactness of the stroma. There is high amount of glycosaminoglycans and particulate matter in the stromal matrix. There is coiling of the endometrial vessels. Uh, there is also the coiling of the endometrial glands, and if you see typically on a histological cross section, you see the corkscrew shaped of the endometrial glands. The hallmark of the secretory transformation is a subnuclear nuclear vacuolation in the endometrial cells. We see glycogen vacuoles in the subnuclear area of the columnar endometrial cells with increased development towards day 18 to day 21. These vacuolation goes into the supranuclear area. This is at the time day 21 in a typical 28-day cycle is the mid-luteal phase, and this is the best day for implantation and nidation of the embryo. In the presence of a pregnancy, the beta HCG secreted by the blastocyst by these days reach the corpus luteum of the ovary and prevent the corpus luteum from degeneration, continuing its activity for a further of a 10 to 12 weeks. After these 10 to 12 weeks, this secretion of progesterone and maintenance of pregnancy is now taken over by the developing and almost fully matured placenta. In the absence of fertilization and in the absence of the HCG stimulus, the corpus luteum gradually goes on to its journey to degeneration and eventually becoming corpus albicans. There is increased fibrosis, increased lipid deposits in this corpus luteum, and eventually the progesterone level gradually diminishes and falls, and hence an unsupported endometrium without any support of the estrogen and progesterone undergoes avascular or ischemic necrosis, thus beginning a new cycle of the endometrium. So this is in brief the endometrial dynamics in response to the Graafian development and ovulation. I hope you have enjoyed and you have understood the basic concepts of endocrinal reproductive studies at the level of the ovary and the endometrium. Let me say, this is being a introductory lecture. This is very, very, very basics, and eventually we can go into further details if you all feel like it. Thank you all so much, and you're welcome for your inputs and your doubts. Thank you. We had gone through long. Friends, here for this session, it is a goodbye. If you have any queries or something, you can post it on my email. We will put my email on this MSCI website, I suppose. And in the next lecture, we can recapitulate if you wish, and we can take care of your doubts and queries in the next lecture if you wish that way. Thank you all so much. If you have any questions right now, we can go ahead with some of them. In the next lecture, I intend to go on with the hormonal regulation of menstruation. So before you go on to that, I wish that you learn all this. At least you understand the concept very well. So the next lecture will be easier for you to go along with.